इस वीडियो में हम जेनेटिक्स के बारे में पढ़ेंगे। बेसिक्स ऑफ जेनेटिक्स और टर्मिनोलॉजीज यूज्ड इन जेनेटिक्स। जेनेटिक्स को जीनियात भी कहते हैं। द वर्ड जेनेटिक्स इज यूज्ड फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम बाय डब्ल्यू बेटसन in 1906. What is genetics? Simply we can define the genetics is the science of genes, or we can also define as a collective study of heredity and variation is known as genetics. Some scientists also define genetics is the science of heredity, variations, and evolution. Heredity, variation, and evolution is collectively known as genetics. Then what is heredity? Heredity जिसको हम तवारुस भी कहते हैं is the study of transmission of genetic characters from parents to offspring is known as heredity. Or we can say the resemblance of parents with their offspring is also known as heredity. बच्चों और वालिदैन के दरमियान मुशाबिहत को heredity कहते हैं. So the resemblance of parents to their offspring is known as heredity. Variation जिसको हम तगयुरात कहते हैं, the differences between parents and their offspring is known as variation. Or we can say that the differences that are seen among the member of same species is known as variation. If the offspring differ from each other and their parents in many respects, these differences are known as variation. Then what is inheritance? Inheritance को हम विरासत भी कहते हैं. The process by which genetic characters are transferred from parents to offspring. वालिदैन से मुख्तलिफ किस्म की खुसूसियात बच्चों में मुंतकिल होने के अमल को इनहेरिटेंस या विरासत कहते हैं. For the development of genetic character following conditions are required. Which conditions are required? मतलब हमारे खुसूसियात जब बच्चों से वालिदैन में मुंतकिल होते तो हर एक जीन्स की खुसूसियात के लिए मंदरजेल कंडीशंस प्रोवाइड होते हैं. वो कौन कौन से हैं? जीन शुड बी प्रेजेंट. दैट जीन शुड बी प्रेजेंट. यस, gene should be expressed, that the gene should express himself, and for expression suitable condition, we can say that environmental conditions should be present there. You know that gene react with the environment and then it produce the phenotypes. So it can be simplified here in the diagram. For example, you know this is the chromosome, and chromosome is basically composed of DNA and protein. So DNA, in which a piece is of some piece of DNA which is responsible for a specific character is known as genes. So genes are present on DNA. So from the DNA or from the genes, RNA is produced. This process is known as transcription, and from RNA, when proteins are produced, they are known as translation. If protein or enzyme, it will attach to the substrate, it will produce the products. And if, for example, this products, it control the height of a plant or of an organism, then it is known as a how the genes express himself, how the genetic characters are produced. History of researchers in genetics. As you know that the father of classical genetics is Gregor John Mendel, and W. Bateson, yes, is the father of modern genetics. He proposed various terms like genetics in 1906, alleles, homozygous, heterozygous. Their definition and detailed descriptions are given below. ये वीडियो आप ज़रूर इन तक देखिए और इसमें हम बेसिक टर्मिनोलॉजीज ऑफ जेनेटिक्स जिसमें इस्तेमाल होते हैं हम इसके बारे में ज़रूर पढ़ेंगे. तो प्लीज़ इस वीडियो को आखिर तक देखें. Then T.H. Morgan, which is also known as father of experimental genetics, he's performed experiment on Drosophila, which is also known as fruit fly. He proposed various concepts like linkage, sex linkage, crossing over, crisscross, and what is inheritance. He suggested that genes are linearly arranged on chromosomes. This phenomena is given by T.H. Morgan's. Just like beads on the string, the genes are present on the DNA or on the chromosomes. And Alfred Gerard, father of human genetics and biochemical genetics, he discovered first human metabolic genetics disorder, which is known as alkaptonuria. This disease is also known as black urine disease. Some genetical terms, for example, what is character? Any feature of an organism. Any feature of an organism, for example, stem height, flower color, skin color of the human beings, height of the human beings, height of the plant. These are known as character. And then what is trait? Variable form of character. For example, within an organism, some organisms are tall, some organisms are dwarf, or some organisms are in between. So then it is known as a trait. So clearly this character and trait can be easily differentiated from each other with the help of diagram. You can see here that this plant is tall and this plant is dwarf. Both of these are dwarf as well as tall. These are trait. These are a trait. And collectively they are known as the height, which is known as character. So this is easily difference between character and a trait. Then what is genes? So you know that the term genes for the first time used by Johansson in 1909. Mendel used term elementon or factor for the genes. Segments of DNA that is responsible for appearance of character is known as genes, or segment of DNA that generally synthesizes RNA and protein is known as gene. Or we can also define gene as unit of inheritance, and chemically the gene is DNA, and we can also define the gene office of a nucleotide on DNA which is specific to produce a polypeptide chain of amino acid which control a character is collectively known as genes. So all genes are DNA, but all DNA are not genes, because all genes are made from DNA, but all DNA does not produce protein and does not control some characters. So that's why we can say that all genes are DNA, but all DNA are not genes. So here, for example, if this is the chromosome which is composed of DNA and protein, so DNA composed of the genes, the DNA which is converted into RNA, transcription from RNA protein is produced, which is known as translation. This reaction is also known as central dogma of molecular genetics, and when proteins are produced, it will control a character, for example height of the plant, skin color of the human beings, as well as hair color of the human beings. So that's why we can say that all genes are DNA, but all DNA are not genes. Then what is alleles? Alternative form of a gene is called allele, and allele arise due to mutations. Allele present at same locus on homologous chromosomes. These are the definition of alleles. Then what is yes, for example, these are the chromosome in which RNA protein and it will control a character tall, and these are known as homologous chromosome. The chromosome which are similar in their shape, structure and function is known as homologous chromosomes. And for example, if this is the DNA, it will convert into RNA, RNA will convert into protein, and it will produce the character which is known as the tall. So, for example, after the process of evolution, as I have told that alleles are produced due to the process of evolution. So, when mutations are taking place, what is mutation? Simply, we can define mutation is change in DNA is known as a mutation. So, for example, when in this within the DNA, a small change if there takes place, then alleles are produced. When alleles are present on homologous chromosomes in the same locus where their original gene is present is known as alleles. For example, here it also produces tall, which is known as capital tall. In it will produce the dwarf. We express himself at small letter t. So it is known as dwarf. So this dwarf character is this recessive character which is developed due to the process of mutation. It produces the alleles. It produces the allele, and it does not express himself in the presence of a dominant allele or dominant genes. This is known as allele. So alternative form of gene is known as a allele, and allele is produced due to the process of mutation. Which of the following is the correct presentation of alleles? So capital T, it is not in homologous chromosome. It is also non-homologous chromosome. Alleles are present on homologous chromosome. So the correct answer will be present here at answer number 4. Unmodified allele or wild allele and original type. Allele which is present in nature from starting, generally unmodified allele is known as a dominant allele. Or we can say that wild or original type of allele which is present from starting, which is known as unmodified allele, wild allele or original type. Then what is modified allele? So modified allele is the allele formed by mutation, formed by change in DNA. Generally modified allele is recessive allele. Generally modified allele is a recessive allele. So unmodified allele, so it will produce RNA and protein. So normal enzyme, substrate and products in it will produce the character tall. and these are known as homologous chromosomes, and these are also known as homologous chromosomes. For example, when some changes after evolution, or we can say when change in DNA takes place, and the process is known as mutation. In mutation, it produces evolutions. So it will produce the modified, it will produce unmodified form of alleles. So unmodified form of allele, with the passage of time, it converted into modified allele. So unmodified allele plus modified alleles, which is produced by the process of mutations. So normal enzyme, it is less sufficient. So substrate in which enzyme is react, it produces the products, and products will control a character which is known as tall, and it tall is dominant. So in non-functional enzymes, it does not react or does not combine with the substrate. It does not produce the products. So the character which is produced is known as recessive, and this is known as unmodified form. And sorry, modified form is produced. So as I have told, that modified form of alleles is produced by the process of mutation, by the process of evolution, which is known as a mutation. Yes. Then what is the conclusion? So modified allele is equal to unmodified allele, while modified allele is not equal to unmodified allele. Then what is homozygous and what is heterozygous, and what are their differences? So presence of two similar alleles of a gene in a diploid organism is known as homozygous allele. Or we can also define an organism having a pair of identical allele for a character or trait is known as a homozygous. So, for example, here you can see that both the characters here for both the genes are really present for a character is similar. So that is known as homozygous. Homo means same, zygous means zygote. Heterozygous, hetero mean different, zygous mean zygote. So it is known as M-power form. So presence of two dissimilar allele epigenes in a diploid organism. Capital T and small t is the example of heterozygous. You can see here clearly in the diagram. Or we can also define the organism having two different allele for a character. Capital T with small t is known as heterozygous. Then what is hemizygous? Hemi means half, zygous means zygote. In diploid organism, presence of a single allele of a gene is known as hemizygous. For example, genes present on X and Y chromosome, because X and Y chromosome both in human male, it is present in single copy. That's why we call them as hemizygous. You can see here this sign or symbol is used for female, while this sign and symbol is used for male. So the hemizygous condition here you can see in the sex chromosome of humans, X and Y chromosome, in which no counterpart allele is present on another chromosome. So we call them as hemizygous. Then what is dominant and recessive? Allele that can be expressed both in homologous and heterozygous condition is known as dominant allele. So, for example, here both the alleles are similar and dominant. So, homozygous. So, they are known as dominant. We can also define the dominant alleles are those allele which express himself in both homozygous as well as heterozygous condition. While recessive allele is those allele that can express only in homozygous condition. Here, the small characters of small tt, it produce a character dwarf, and as I told that recessive allele will express himself in a homozygous conditions. Which of the following is dominant allele and recessive allele? And if we cross R red and R1 is equal to yellow. So given R are, so both of them they are recessive, and it will produce a character red, and capital R in R1 is equal to yellow, R1 is equal to yellow. So these are known as dominant trait. So R1 is the dominant allele and R is the recessive allele. Then what is the phenotype and genotype? Phenotype means the physical appearance of an organism. Or we can also define the phenotype. So the physical appearance of an organism for a particular character is also known as phenotype. For example, in pea plant you can see tall and dwarf, which can be easily seen with our naked eyes. So it is known as phenotype. Then what is genotype? The genetic make of an organism to control a particular character is known as a genotype. Here you can see that TTT, capital T, small t, and small t. These are known as the genotype. And genotype cannot be seen with our naked eyes. Then what is phenocopy? When two different genotypes placed under different environmental conditions and develop similar phenotype, they are called phenocopy of each other. For example, if this is known as the tall plant and this is known as the dwarf plants after gibberellin treatment, both similar, having similar genotypes, having different environmental condition, but one have given the gibberellin, it will express or develop similar phenotype, then it is known as a phenocopy. Then what is self-pollination or inbreeding, and what is cross-pollination, which is known as outbreeding. Selfing means the transfer of pollens from the anther of the stamen of the same flower into the stigma of the same flower is known as self-pollination. In cross-pollination, the transfer of pollens from one flowers to other flowers of another plant is known as cross-pollination. And selfing is also known as inbreeding. If you like the video, please share, subscribe, and watch, and see my channels for next update. Thank you.